Let me just say this up front, Cowboys Nation. This one hits different. Because when you start hearing rumors that the Dallas Cowboys might even think about trading Brandon Aubrey, the best kicker in football right now, you've got to stop and ask yourself, what are we doing? What is Jerry Jones thinking? I mean, look at the numbers. 92 of 101 on field goals, 29 of 32 from beyond 50 yards, a long of 65. That's not just elite, that's historic. Brandon Aubrey isn't just a good kicker, he's one of the most reliable weapons in the entire NFL. The man has been automatic, clutch, and fearless. And now, somehow, his name is being tossed around as a trade candidate before the November 4 deadline. Cowboys Nation, that's insanity. This all started when ESPN's Bill Barnwell floated Aubrey's name in a list of notable trade possibilities. And let's be real, even he admitted it was a thought experiment, a what-if, more than an actual rumor. But still, the fact that it's even being discussed tells you how chaotic this season has become. Because if Jerry Jones even considers moving a player like Aubrey, one of the only consistent performers on this roster, it says one thing loud and clear. This organization is searching for direction. Barnwell wrote, "I'd be stunned if the Cowboys traded Aubrey, but I'm throwing it out there as a thought experiment." He added that a going-nowhere team doesn't have much use for a kicker. Well, I don't know about you, but that statement stings. Because Cowboys fans don't see this team as going nowhere. Not when you've got Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and a locker room still fighting for every inch. Not when there's still a path to the playoffs and pride left to defend. And you know what else? Brandon Aubrey has earned that star on his helmet. This isn't just a guy who got lucky for a season. He's a 30-year-old rookie turned phenomenon, a former soccer player who walked into the NFL and instantly became one of its most accurate kickers. He's 105 for 109 on extra points. He's hit from distances that most teams wouldn't even attempt. And through all the chaos, through every injury and setback this season, Aubrey has been the calm, the certainty, the one thing you can count on. So yeah, Cowboys Nation has every right to be shocked. You can trade underperforming players, you can shop depth pieces, but Brandon Aubrey, that's the kind of player you build around, not trade away. Because championship teams don't just rely on touchdowns, they rely on trust. And Aubrey has been the definition of trust. Now, to be fair, this might just be media noise. According to Sports Illustrated, there's no actual indication from inside the Star that Dallas is fielding calls for Aubrey. This isn't a front office leak, it's more like an outsider's idea, but one that caught fire because of the state of this team. Fans are emotional, the media smells blood, and every time Jerry Jones doesn't speak clearly about the team's plans, the speculation gets louder. Here's the thing though, this would make zero sense strategically. Aubrey's contract is friendly, his performance is elite, and he's the only special teams weapon that's turned games around this year. You don't trade the one part of your team that's actually working. You protect it, you invest in it, you make it part of your identity. Because, let's be honest, how many times this season have we seen the offense stall, only for Aubrey to bail us out with a 55-yarder through the wind? How many drives have ended with 3 points instead of none because this man refuses to miss? You can't put a price tag on that. You can't replace that with future value. That's not just a kicker. That's a closer. That's a tone setter. And think about this. If you really want to talk about value, Brandon Aubrey's the type of player you extend, not trade. He's already eligible for an extension next offseason. He's proven himself under pressure. You give that man a deal, you make him part of your foundation for the next 5 years, and you keep him in blue and silver where he belongs. Because Dallas isn't a going-nowhere team. Dallas is a team trying to climb back, a team that's been tested, humbled, and now has to decide who it really is. And you don't rebuild by tearing apart what's good. You rebuild by locking it down, tightening it up, and showing faith in the guys who've delivered. Brandon Aubrey has delivered. over and over again. So, Cowboys Nation, here's where I stand. Trade talk or not, Brandon Aubrey represents something bigger than points on the board. He represents consistency in a season of chaos. And if you want to know what real leadership looks like, it's keeping your best players when things get tough, not cashing out when the heat rises. Jerry Jones, listen up. This isn't the piece you trade. This is the piece you keep. Aubrey has earned that star, earned this fan base, and earned the right to be part of what comes next in Dallas. Cowboys Nation, what do you think? Should Dallas even entertain the idea of trading Brandon Aubrey? Or should Jerry shut it down right now? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if you believe Aubrey should stay a Cowboy for life, and subscribe to Dallas Game Day for more fire, passion, and truth straight from the heart of the nation. Because this isn't just about a kicker, it's about the message. And the message should be clear. We fight for what's ours. This is Dallas. We don't trade greatness, we build around it. This is Dallas Game Day, and this right here is what being a Cowboy is all about.